All right. Welcome back to the Retention Edge podcast. I've got Chris Brewer here from OMG Commerce. Chris, why don't you give everyone a quick introduction on yourself, man?
Yeah, sure, Eric. I've been a leader in the e-commerce space for the past 15 years with our agency, OMG Commerce. I've been a multi-time entrepreneur with other businesses and marketing in past years. Do a little bit of consulting in addition to my roles as a co-founder over here at OMG Commerce. We work with high seven, but mostly 8 to 9 figure direct to consumer brands, helping them with their performance marketing, taking them from where they are to reach new heights, whether it's on YouTube or Amazon, Google, Meta, or retention marketing through loyalty programs such as Klaviyo and SMS.
Awesome. Awesome. And I guess, how did you get into the e-commerce space? What's your story there?
Yeah, actually, my first foray into e-commerce was with a website called findasign.com. This was in the early 2000s, like the dawn of the internet. I was actually one of the first online sign sites where I was selling different kinds of neon signs, business signs. Also had an interesting angle where I was placing billboard advertising through a brokerage network back when the industry was more independent. And I ended up selling that business. And so I was exposed very early to e-commerce and when pay-per-click ads were in the not in dollars, but in cents, 10-cent clicks, 15, 20-cent clicks back in the glory days. And SEO was easy and had all kinds of fun black hat ways to get your site ranked quickly. But that was my early days in e-commerce. And then did some things in direct mail and in publishing. And then my business partner and I decided to found this company 15 years ago after attending a conference and actually started not in e-commerce, but in local, helping local businesses, service businesses, different kind of plumbing, attorneys, that whole area, which also opened up franchise routes, worked with a particular franchise group for a number of years. But as we were working with local businesses, we started to have businesses like the Bedding Mart, which is still out there, that had started a e-commerce site called beddingmart.com or thebeddingmart.com, I think. And they were selling mattresses online, even like all of the mattress boom online with
Yeah.
Casper and all of those other kind of mattress lines. And so we saw that, hey, even though we were focusing on his local sales and getting foot traffic into his retail locations, he was also selling online. And that's what started getting us into thinking about what could really happen. That's when Google Shopping was instituted. And my partner, Brett Curry, was one of the first to really embrace Google Shopping and start teaching about that. And so we started getting a lot of brands coming to us for our Google Shopping expertise back in the day.
Awesome. Awesome. And I guess to start out, like, how do you think brands should evaluate picking agencies, right? Obviously, you guys have a ton of brands coming to you and evaluating you. What do you think that the main criteria is for a brand to understand, like, an agency that they should be working with and should trust versus an agency they wouldn't want to work with and shouldn't trust?
Well, I think we've got to acknowledge, at least for any brands that are listening to this, the elephant in the room is that a good number of brands have had bad agency experiences. But what I have found in that, and that's maybe the dirty little secret, is the brands heard somebody at a conference, fell in love with that individual, signed up really quickly for their service, and then didn't work with that individual, or that individual didn't have a really great team behind him, or they fell in love with an idea or concept that maybe was not actually working as well as it was when that was kind of popular, and or they fell in love with a founder, but then once they got turned over to the in-house team at that agency, they found out that they really weren't as good as what the founder was talking about. But all of those are typically decisions that brands made, and really a failure to hire their outside agency with as much rigor as they would hiring for an in-house role. And so that's, to me, one of the biggest mistakes that brands make, is not being thorough and really truly vetting out the agency, asking to speak with customers, asking to speak with former clients of the agency, and asking about what's going to happen if A happens or B happens, or how can you. It's actually a pretty bad question that brands can ask. How can you guarantee me results? Nobody can. Nobody can. But usually those are questions people ask without doing the other work I just mentioned. So that's my spiel, if you will, on how brands should go about to hire an agency. Obviously, it's very easy, like these days, to go on Clutch and look at verified client reviews there. But you also have to remember, most of those reviews on Clutch were requested by the agency from a client that's had a good experience. It's not a site where a brand will just show up and just write a average review. So even though the reviews on there are legitimate and actual reviews, they are the best of the best examples, right?
Yeah, it's a
And
biased subset of the customer base.
Correct. So it's just, again, doing your work, asking to speak with clients, asking to speak with former clients, using forums like e-commerce Fuel or other popular e-commerce forum. Who do you know? Where have you had good experiences? Things like that.
Uh, it makes complete sense why you say like, okay, talk to current customers. Why do you also say talk to former customers as well?
It's a curveball the agency isn't expecting.
Hmm.
So many agencies get asked, "Hey, can you provide a reference for me, someone that currently works with you that I could talk to?" Most every agency has one, two, or three. I've probably got five easily that would talk. However, if every brand that wanted to work with me asked for a reference on every single call, I would absolutely destroy those references, right?
Yep.
Like they wouldn't, Brewer, I got a business to run. I can't be vouching for you every 2 weeks. So that's another thing brands have to realize, is that if everybody asks for that reference, and so that's where, does the agency have do they have UGC content? Are there places you can go on their YouTube channel to find brands that have spoken good of the agency? And then go connect with those people on LinkedIn, direct message them. Hey, how long ago did you leave this review? Do you still have a good feeling of this agency? Or was that just a time that you had a really good experience and then time went by and it wasn't as great any longer? So again, it's looking deeper under the hood than most people do.
Makes complete sense. Now for once they've selected the agency that they want to work with, right? Whether they're doing Google ads, Facebook ads, SEO, email marketing, whatever it is. Uh, Obviously, you're not going to typically see results right away. There's this period where they need to understand the brand, they need to understand what you have been doing and what you've tried in the past, and
In some
and
cases.
and all those different things. How long should a brand be giving an agency, and what should they be looking at over that first month or two where they're working with this agent,
Sure.
determine if they're on the right path?
Well, I'll tell you what's popular right now. 3 years ago, we could get 12-month contracts easily with no cancellation period. It was just, you're signing up for a year and we're going to work together for a year. These days, you see a lot more brands that want 90-day or 120-day outs.
Hmm.
And I think those are actually fair, because if you hire a person in house, let's say you're hiring an in house Google Ads manager, you're probably going to have a 90-day probationary period. Did this guy level up to what it said on his resume? Can he or she actually perform? So I think that's fair to do with an agency as well. But you also have to trust the agency and the information that they're giving you. Because if an agency says, hey, look, this is a 6-month time frame, like, especially I just had a brand this morning talk about they're wanting to launch a separate website on D2C off Amazon. And I said, well, or would you be prepared for 6 to 9 months of losses? And he said, oh, well, yeah, I could probably do that. Do you think it's going to be 6 to 9 months of losses? I say, well, hey, in your category, sure, you could go viral. Sure, we could find something that hits or maybe a video that converts. But for Google and the level of competition you have, it's probably going to be 6 to 9 months before you're going to make a profit. So it's not really fair to the agency to have a 90-day out for non-performance. So it's like if the 90 days is just like an out because you're not vibing with the team and there's verifiable information there, like sure, that maybe could be set up. But otherwise, if the agency believes there are definite things that could be measured in the first 3 months, for instance, and they're willing to put those down, like I'm looking at an account that actually we're talking to at 2 o'clock Eastern today. And it's an in-house operator, and it's a guy who's really struggling. And I really admire this guy because he is putting the company first and actually putting his job potentially at risk by this maneuver. Meaning this brand hired this operator. They got rid of agencies, and he is running, listen to this, he is running Google ads. He is running Meta ads. He is running their Klaviyo and their TikTok. This is a $12 million brand.
Mm,
And on the call, the guy just says, look, admittedly, I'm overwhelmed. I'm spending 15 hours a week on these ads. I'm spread thin. He recognizes he's spread thin. And so it's a bit of a risk to bring us in because if we take Google ads and YouTube off his plate, it's going to give him a ton of time, but also he's going to have to show performance in those areas for the company while they've added a new expense, quote unquote,
mm,
new expense, adding us on. And so but in evaluating that account, like we can see this is an overwhelmed person. And this is actually one that we took on as an advisory. We'll take on advisory accounts where if they're in-house, because we're actually really friendly to in-house teams and have a lot of respect for the operators that are trying to run a good game and trying to do a great job for a founder or a board. And sometimes they just need extra help. So we have a service where we'll put someone in the account. They're not moving the dials, they're not making any changes, but they're your over the shoulder person at an expert level. And then we create a Slack channel for real time discussions over challenges, problems, disapprovals, new techniques, or met things that happen with PMAX or other challenges in the feed, for instance. And this is a guy that actually was with us for about 5 months at an advisory level. And we were making some improvements, but he still recognizes he just is not giving it the time that could be needed if somebody else took it over. And so in this account, um, we can see probably close to $8,000 a month in inefficient spend that maybe we can't knock that out in the first 30, but definitely in the first 60 days, we can likely recoup 7 to 8,000, which is going to actually more than pay for our retainer,
mhm,
right? And so, yeah, I would sign a 90-day out. Like, sure, if we don't recoup at least 9 grand in an efficient spend, yeah, you can cut us loose. But the chances of that happening are pretty low, right? Um, so hopefully that gives brands kind of a balanced area that they can judge, because just saying, hey, we want a 90-day out period, that's not really fair to the agency,
yeah,
especially if they've evaluated that that in their educated experience, this is going to take some time. Um, we just, I'll just say it, we just fired an Amazon brand uh, for similar reasons. Brought the guy on, told him what it was going to take. He agreed in in the methods, then changed our methods, our KPIs 2 months in, and then wanted a return on the change in the KPIs within another 30 days, or he told us he was going to let us go. Well, I contacted the past agency he worked with, and he goes, "Yeah, that's how this guy rolls. Sorry, I should have told you that." And we're like, "Look, I try to tell him that this is going to result in him hopping agencies. Like if he's changing the strategy that we all agreed to, it's not going to lead to long term performance." So we mutually agreed. It was more us wanting out, but we mutually agreed to let this guy move on,
Hmm.
and consequently, the agency that took him on knew me and called me and said, "What do you know about this guy?" He goes, "My sales team's saying they don't want to work with him." So it's just like, sadly, certain brands get reputations that way because they want to hire an expert, but they're really not willing to let them be the expert. They're wanting to poke holes in the argument or things like that. Those are rare, thankfully. Um, but I think those are good things for everyone to be aware of. Because for every agency horror story that a brand has, I can give you some of my own.
And what are some of the, I guess, biggest mistakes you see brands are making right now on the demand gen side of things when it comes to the different ads that they're running, whether it's on YouTube, Meta, or
I I I think I don't know if it's mistakes much as it is just getting educated on the different demand levers that are out there, and also what is the consequence of utilizing those levers. For instance, TikTok is very hot right now. I know a brand right now that is quote unquote doing really great on TikTok, but they're doing a 40% discount, and they're
Hmm.
not offering that anywhere else. And I don't see that this is leading to branded search increases outside of TikTok. So he's just giving away product, and he's not really elevating the brand. So that's an example of mistakes that you have to look at. What amount of promotion can I do from TikTok, for instance? Are the creators actually going to lend itself to branded search off platform? Like, am I using my advertising and my TikTok to actually get people to research the product on Google or go buy it on Amazon or things like that? Um, on the YouTube side, which we do a lot of, and we're kind of, I think, pretty well known for our expertise in YouTube for not only D2C brands, but also enterprise brands that sell at retail, whether it's, Trader Joe's, or it's Home Depot, or it's Walmart, or it's Target, big box retail, where brands need to get foot traffic in to show that they're getting good sell through there. And we've developed some great ways on YouTube to show those meaningful increases in foot traffic. And what happens there is brands come in all super excited about, "Hey, I've heard YouTube spend can rival my Meta spend. Let's get started." But all their creatives are formatted to Meta. All of the messaging there is formatted for Meta. So I often encourage brands to, before you go looking for an agency to run your YouTube ads, again, call some of those agencies, ask them about what kind of creative they like to see. What kind of creative can they produce? Can you produce it for me? We do an analysis on brands. We'll analyze their Meta, we'll analyze their YouTube channel. A lot of times say, "Hey, you've got great UGC here. We could edit this into some new formats that we could test on YouTube." And again, sometimes that's a mistake where brands are so uh, have a sense of urgency to get started on YouTube that they push through to the agency creative that really isn't likely going to work. And then they chalk it up to say, "Well, that didn't work."
hmm.
And so they take a good uh, new customer acquisition tool potentially off the shelf because it didn't work. And so we find with us, we're having to, YouTube's not as creative hungry as Meta, but we're having to do 6 or 8 different creative kind of versions sometimes with different audience combinations to find that magic piece of content that's going to scale and produce what they want.
What are some of the best practices right now for generating good creative when it comes to YouTube specifically?
Well, this is a good plug. I've got a guide I could share. I'll we could something we could put in the notes
Yeah,
that I
absolutely.
can share the 6 or 7 types of video content that are useful for YouTube. There's some fun names we got for them, the story and the glory. We've got the manifesto video. We've got the UGC mashup. These are all examples of different kinds of YouTube content that can be helpful. Um, and some people would recognize these in videos that they've seen online. There is the use case. Here I'm using the demonstration video. Here's how you use it. Here's how I put it on, or here's what my results were. So that's going to be more UGC or influencer oriented. But then you go with a manifesto type of video, which is here's how you're disrupting the current landscape. Here's a product that you've never heard of or you've never considered, and this is why it's so revolutionary. And some older examples of that, but they're classics, right? Would be the Dollar Shave Club video example.
Yep.
Purple Mattress has some classic ones there that are kind of that manifesto type of video. Poopery is a good one because they're fun, but they also show, wow, I didn't even know that covering up your stink was a thing until that product came out, right? Like,
Mhm.
so it's there's a lot of fun ways there, and we've got plenty of resources just on our website people could go to and grab some of the the guides that we have in our resources section to
Yeah.
look at here's some kinds of video. And there's great providers, like I'll put a plug in for a group that does a lot of work for the brands that at least we see come to us, is Raindrop. And Raindrop is, I would say, kind of at the pinnacle of D2C creation of content. And they've got a lot of different ways that people can go. If your budgets aren't at a Raindrop level or your brand isn't large enough, like there's a lot of independent creators that know how to produce content for YouTube, but I encourage you to find someone who knows how to do that or at least edit existing content, because the kinds of hooks and the way that you even position the video, length of video, all matter when it comes to increasing your YouTube results.
Have you noticed any change in the last, like 1 or 2 years when it comes to the creative that needs to be put out on YouTube or even TikTok at this point, whether it's accounting for maybe like shorter attention spans or I guess this change in the way brand needs to be shown where a lot of people won't have full brand context when they're seeing a specific piece
Yeah,
of content?
sure. I think a fun way to show how things have changed so rapidly, like go find TV Land on your, I don't know if YouTube TV carries it or if it's cable, but just Google TV Land and find a YouTube or something. Look at some of those older sitcoms.
Mhm.
Look at some of the commercials that play. You'll notice that there are the cuts and edits back then were like, some of it's hard to watch for a younger person these days. Like, when are they going to change the scene? When are they going to cut to something else?
Mhm.
And so back in the day, there were much longer attention spans when it was old media. And now with scroll, you know, zombie scrolling and all of that, there's got to be quick changes of scene changes, text overlays. There's so much voiceovers. There's so many methods, but also, you don't always have to go quick cuts on everything to create a converting video. Because if you get people in the right mindset, they're willing to listen a bit longer. So, longer format or video sales letter type of stuff still definitely works. There are brands that are making that kind of content work, but it all depends on where you're reaching them. Are you reaching them for the first time on TikTok and you've got to grab their attention? Or are they deeper in the funnel? They have some level of understanding about your brand or product, and so they're willing to listen a little longer. So those would be the trends I've seen. Is definitely the cuts and edits have increased in the last couple of years. And now you've got an interesting thing that's happening, and not, I don't hear much people talking about this, but I think there's going to be a real issue with trust in brands with AI content, and a level of trust destabilization that can happen if you're outed for AI content. So I would be very careful about that. I'm one of those people that is extremely annoyed when I'm on Instagram or I'm on TikTok or I'm on YouTube Shorts and I start watching a video and I can tell immediately it's a
Yeah.
sort of video, or it's AI content. It's annoying because I get interested, or it's a chiropractor that is completely destroying a person, throwing them across the room. It's all AI. It's just like, for me, animal attacks. Before, you could have fun watching an actual animal attack. Now, it's not really. It's a fake. It's a raccoon that's gone rabid, but it's not really a raccoon because it's AI. Like, for me, and I think a lot of people, those just get annoying. I mean, you see it in the comments. I was really bought in until I saw this was AI. Can someone tell me where when can we see real videos again? So I really believe that consumers are going to push back on, I would just say, interruptive type of media that's got AI in it. And I think brands need to be very intentional about how they use AI in their business. Like, if you watch a video about your brand, and again, be careful about faking it. Like,
Mhm.
there's a lot of companies selling UGC content that's not UGC content. It's
It's
AI.
illegal, actually, too, right?
Right. And the FTC hasn't even come down on this yet, but they're
Yeah.
going to. I mean, so don't do things that are going to get you involved in a class action suit. Uh, Even if it's the hot thing right now, or it's easy to do. I see brands in a big e-commerce forum I'm in sharing videos that, in my mind, are just completely unethical, but they think it's cool.
Yeah.
But it could crush your business.
That's such a good point, and I'm so glad you brought this up because I see this so often. Like, completely established brands that must be doing 20, 50, $100 million a year, running what to me seems like obvious AI influencer UGC content, basically,
Mhm,
which, again, to your point, it has to be illegal. Like, it
mhm.
has to be. But obviously, the FCC, or whatever, the individual country's regulator isn't doing anything about that yet. But
Yeah,
even, yet is the key word. But even aside from that, there's the ethical conundrum, like you said. Like, is that actually ethical? But then also, even if you ignore the ethics and ignore the illegality, which you shouldn't, but ignoring that, can that, like, at some point, that's going to erode brand trust and consumer trust in you to a point where you're just ruining your brand, right? Like, I
yeah,
can't imagine over the long term that that's a strategy that's going to work.
yeah.
But there's so many tools out there now that are doing exactly this. There's AI influencer tools. There are AI ad generators. There's
Mhm,
like Jasper and all these guys out there that
mhm.
can create AI content for ads. And so how are you advising your clients on what to do with AI and what not to do? Because at the end of the day, if you're not using it, you're just competing against a brand that is using it, right? And you're
Mhm.
competing against a brand that's able to put out 10,000 different pieces of creative because they're using this AI tool that's just generating image
Yeah,
after
yeah.
image or
Well, I
whatever.
think it's just getting a good understanding of what, our agency is gonna have a certain amount of ethics and morals and ways that we ascribe to, and the way we hire and all that, but our customers are gonna have different sets of ethics
Right.
and morals and all of that. So, I think for us, we can educate the brands to say, "Hey, I would discourage you from using this. If you ask me to deploy it, I will, but this is going to be on you if and when it blows back."
Mhm.
And so, like, why don't we go and use a service like Join Brands, putting a plug for another friend of mine's business, like
Huh.
that. We can go, and there's other ones you guys can look up, UGC video tools, creator tools, things like that. But where you can get real people that, um, are going to take your product, use it, and give a good review or video, and be a lot safer there. So I think for us, it's more, hey, we're going to advise you on what we believe is best practice and what's going to keep you out of legal hot water, even if it's 2 to 3 years from now. Because I don't know about you, but every now and then I get a letter in the mailbox that tells me that I'm part of some class action shoot because I was a MasterCard holder, or because I was with Verizon, or because I was using ESPN or
Yep.
whatever. And some trial attorney uh, got onto this and uh, created a class action. And, so, and as maybe if you're a $250,000 a year brand, you're likely safe. Okay. But that doesn't mean you should do it. But if you're a 10, 15, $20 million brand, the bigger you are, the bigger the problems you get. The bigger you are, the bigger the attorneys are looking at how they can dip into that. So I would just say, um, when it comes to like general, like modifying photos, safe. If if you're, if you need to if you're selling a candle and you are coming up on Christmas as we are here in the States, and you don't want to go and hire a photographer to go and set up a studio with green and red and wreaths and
Huh.
other candles and setting up different environments to do photo shoots. You just want to do a tool that can give you quickly 50 different Christmas holiday themed photos. That's all good. It's still a photo. It's still your product. The background is manufactured. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's being sensible. I think, Eric, is the thing.
Hmm.
Be sensible and be practical. Uh, Shortcuts almost never pay off in the long run.
And what about all these AI tools that aren't just doing what you said, like, okay, I'm going to feed this product image and now create a bunch of creative around this product image, right? But they're even like creating the copy for it, and then these tools are now gonna create 100 different versions of that candle product, pieces of creative, and then they're gonna run all those, A/B test them all together, and then see, which ones convert best and all these different things. Uh, as a brand, I it seems like to me, from my perspective, that they're all eventually gonna have to go down to doing that because they just
Hmm.
won't be able to compete because realistically,
Right.
the best piece of content is gonna win, and if you can't compete
Yeah.
against the volume of having 1,000 pieces of content to compete against, you're not gonna get anywhere. So, I
Yeah.
guess what are your thoughts on that?
Uh, I wouldn't disagree. I think it's a matter of how are you going to judge the volume? And that's where I think the challenge or the slippery slope could be for the brand is, for instance, if you have an in-house team and you get really tool happy and you're just churning through these things, you can get really inefficient. I mean, it's just building in mass. It does
Sure.
if and so I like what we do with our company is we use the best AI tools and or software with human oversight, with human intellect. And so we're allowing the tools to do the work, but then we're giving it a reality gut check because there is still a lot of AI hallucination out there, a ton of it. And it's very dangerous to just let those things go wild because we've already seen it with brands that have used tools like that and they're horrified when we're like, hey, did you know this ad is running
Sure.
and it's just like terrible, or it's not on brand. And so I think you're going to see a lot of things shift. The human role, I think, is still going to be vitally important in helping to build strategy and make good decisions. And I really don't think human beings want technology to completely take over. That's the other little rabbit hole you can go down on YouTube and get really freaked out at 95% unemployment when super intelligence comes along and all of those things. But
It's always a
so
fun
I
rabbit
think
hole to
that,
go down.
yeah, I think there'll be a bit of an AI bubble. I think we're in a bit of an AI bubble right now. Um, but I think it's only for those that are really close to it. Amazon just announced they're laying off 30,000 people. How much of that is because they've got AI that's replaced it? How much is it because they overhired during COVID and didn't make deeper cuts like they should have? And they're just a huge entity, and that's the number that they come up with. So um, it's all going to play out like it always does. You just have to make sure you're getting good advice and you're not making bold steps without having a good second opinion on it.
Chris, thanks so much for joining the Retention Edge podcast. We really appreciate it. If people want to reach out to you and discuss ad generation, retention marketing, whatever it might be, how should they find you and reach out to you?
If you just Google Chris Brewer marketer, you'll find me. My hashtag is Mo Marketer, and that'll bring up almost all my socials. I am very active on LinkedIn, so you can send me a message on my LinkedIn account, or just go to our website, omgcommerce.com, fill out a Let's Talk, and that'll come right to me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this, Chris.
Thanks, Eric. Enjoyed it.